Here is a Manning-Bowman chill chaser electric heater made by Bursted Manufacturing Company, probably during the late 50s or early 60s. It's just like this Focalips heater that I use in the shop, only this one belongs to a friend of mine. He picked this up at an estate sale, and he said it didn't work, and he would like for me to try and repair it for him. Now, there's really not that much to go wrong with these heaters. If one doesn't work, it's either going to be the power cord itself or the heating element. Just have to find out which. Now, the first thing we'll need to do is pop this front grill off, and that way I can get it apart and determine what's wrong with it. Actually, checking the continuity across the AC plug with the ohm meter, I read 22 ohms, and even flexing the power cord doesn't cause that resistance to change, so I don't know, there may not be nothing wrong with this thing. One way to find out, and as you can see, it's working, but I think I'm going to take this apart anyway and make sure all of our connections are secure. And I need to clean this internal, this deflector. It needs to be as clean as possible. And then this thing ought to be good to go for him. Okay, we have the front grill off, and it just snaps out of place. And I can tell this heater has been in an accident. You can see it's a little bit bent up a little bit, as is the grill here. Of course, in their day, these were relatively cheap heaters made by Bursted Manufacturing Company who also built fans. In fact, this same base can be found on many of their cheaper desk fans from the same time period. So after this cools, we'll pull this apart and see what we can do with it and make sure everything's safe. But even though these were cheap heaters back in the late 50s, early 60s, I'll still take one of these over the currently produced Chinese models that are on the market. You can see the nearly identical one that I use in the shop. It's keeping me quite warm right here at the workbench. I used to use one of those oil-filled heaters. It looks like an old radiator out here, but that thing takes forever to heat up the area, and it still doesn't get it very warm, not to mention runs the power bill up. Well, this heater here won't heat the whole shop, but I have it focused to heat me, and that's really all we need it to do. I can turn it on whenever I come down here and turn it off when I leave. It doesn't have to stay on for extended periods of time, thus keeping the power bill lower. Okay, I really couldn't find anything wrong. I tightened up the internal wire connections just for good measure. And we have a nice reading on our ohm meter. Now, for a safety test, we'll measure from the one side of the plug prongs and to the metal frame of the heater here and make sure there's no continuity. Okay, I'm measuring from the plug to the heater frame, and as you can see, we have no continuity, so that's a good sign. And I also cleaned up the reflector, so it should work more efficiently now. Okay, here we are back together and throwing off a good bit of heat. That coil is nice and red. Now, just some tips on these heaters if you should ever work on one. Number one, make sure your power cord is in good shape. And if you have to replace the cord, make sure to use a power cord that is suitable for a heating appliance. Don't use a standard plastic cord like you would find on a radio or TV, because that'll melt on you and cause you all sorts of problems. Number two, make sure all of your insulators are intact and in place. Last thing you want is for one side of the AC line to short out to the metal frame here. And number three, make sure all of your connections are good and tight. Over the years, these things tend to work loose, You want to make sure everything, all your connections are clean and making good contact. And number 4, you'll want to make sure your reflector is clean here. This one was fairly dirty, as you saw before. And when these deflectors get dirty, they obviously don't deflect the heat like they should, and the back side of the heater will start getting hot on you. When these deflectors are deflecting heat as they should, the back side of the heater really shouldn't get hot at all. But there you go. That's the main things you want to watch out for on this, and also make sure that there are no little strands of wire sticking out from your power cord. You don't want the possibility of any wire or any electrical connections to touch this metal frame. That would be a major safety hazard. Okay, there you go. A Manning-Bowman chill chaser electric heater from probably the late 50s, early 60s that I just repaired for a friend of mine. Yeah, he should be happy with it now. I think he wants to use this on his porch to kind of keep the chill off during the winter time. Okay, thanks for watching, and more to come later. In our next video, we will examine this little Radio Shack SA-10 little stereo amplifier that I already have apart.